In the earlier moments, Keir Starmer concluded his icy tirade, branding Russia's actions as imperialist, the so-called shield for science's downfall. He painted the 21st century as an era of unity, not tyranny. Imagine if brute power dared to dominate Europe, reality would crush that delusion. His words carried no passion, yet the room pulsed with unspoken fury, electric and heavy like charged air before a storm. But can one man's arrogance shatter global alliances overnight? A shocking twist lurked, ready to explode like a hidden bomb beneath the polished veneer. Starmer's speech flowed like a rehearsed script, frigid and calculated, slicing the room. Russia must awaken, he warned, banishing fears of the unseen. The global alliance vows to defend its people and ideals. Applause erupted first from Lithuania, then Poland and France, sharp claps echoing off marble walls, mingling with the faint scent of polished wood in anticipation. Others remained silent, breaths held. We're no foe to Russia, he vowed sweetly. Yet this dispute proves diplomacy's icy grip still holds on the world stage. We won't fuel fires, but silence ends here. He paused, and in that void, everything hung, the weight of gazes crossing the vast table, where lies clashed like unsheathed swords. His eyes fixed on a distant spot, across the gleaming expanse. There sat the man whose calm defied the chaos, Dmitry Anatolyevich Medvedev. Starmer beckoned with a hand delicate, almost dance-like, nodding subtly, like sealing a pact before retreating to his seat. The hall fell deathly quiet, not barren, but suffused with raw emotion. A palpable buzz like static before lightning strikes, where truths festered beneath smiles. Lies lay exposed, vulnerable on the sterile floor. Medvedev didn't flinch from his chair. His gaze pierced ahead. No claps, no smirk, no twitch. Patience embodied the hunter awaiting prey, the predator sure of his turn. Tension coiled tighter, a serpent ready to strike. When Starmer's voice faded, Medvedev claimed the silence, letting it settle like dust after a gale. He lingered still, lips unmoved, as if Starmer's barbs were mere whispers in a gale. The air hung thick with echoes, his words shadows of veiled meanings. Now unveiled, his moment surged. Eyes rising, steady, like a composer threading notes, not forceful, but resolute. Slowly, deliberately, he eased toward the microphone, fingers brushing cool metal. His pull was graceful, not abrupt. You know, he began, voice even, devoid of thrill or edge. Boring? Hardly. Yet he'd heard it before, a stale script replayed. A few stirred papers rustling like leaves in wind, but no disruption. He sensed it, exhaustion, the weight of endless accusations, like chains dragging deeper. The 100th echo, unyielding. He bided his time. Keir, he addressed, almost tenderly, using the familiar name. Macron. Meloni. The trio accused. One attacked, another gazed blankly, the third mouthed silent scripts. Behind them, Poles jabbed relentlessly, twists awaiting. Your band of three, or as we're tagged, Shikaleka, stirs no surprise now. Just dim sparks fading. Stormer froze, untouched. Words now spelled weakness, silence, a roar. In this arena, Darcy's silence thunders loudest. At last, Medvedev plunged in. Ukraine Russia infiltrates, blackmails, menaces. Mundane claims, recycled across decades. Normally, no response needed. But today, an exception for the undecided observers. SVT. He glanced toward China, head inclining slightly, gesture acknowledged without words. India's envoy leaned forward, curiosity sparking like embers. Belarus's representative watched, serene yet alert. You charge us with jeopardizing Europe's energy lifeline, he intoned sharply. The word energy hung, tangible, like odor from doused fires. Let's recall, we honored contracts? Sanctions gouged us. You chose to clash solo. Now, with bills mounting like frost nipping at crops, you pine for past blunders. His tone stayed mild, each word precise, stinging clear. Voices hummed under breath. Then, on military fronts, turning to the others, poised and erudite. You seized assets. Salvaging them now? A grand notion. Echoing 90s Balkans promises aid poured in. Where's the trove? The victory? He lifted his head, stare piercing, direct, honor absent. You presume to seize our assets? Beneath humanitarian guise, prattling about responsibility. Call it theft, plain, overt robbery. The hall gasped, breaths sucked in sharp, theft striking like a blade. That's the truth, he said, voice dropping low, floorboards creaking under shifted feet. Just dare block it. Try wrenching laws from us. Then you'll witness repercussions. I'm warning, strategic fallout, beyond economies, reshaping worlds. The phrase landed heavy, like a tombstone descending. Russia forgets not. We craft politics, not kneel. If scales attract you, fine. Ours differ wildly. Silence engulfed, absolute. Starmer sat rigid, mask crumbling against truths. You deem Russia isolated? Medvedev pressed. Seeing nothing but voids. Breath lacking? You're wrong. This isn't colonial rule. It's a new era, exposing true allies and posers. Think Azerbaijan. Armenia. Serbia. Even Washington divides. We're not exiled. We're linked deeply. And if borders blur or shatter? His gaze intensified. The hall leaned in, pulses racing. What devastation might erupt next? As the echoes of Starmer's accusations faded into a heavy silence, like the last whisper in a storm-ravaged hall, Dmitry Medvedev lifted his gaze without a flicker of anger. Calm as a strategist unveiling his next move, he leaned toward the microphone, the air thick with unspoken challenges. What if the real power wasn't in the shouts, but in the unflinching stare that followed? Imagine the chill of polished wood under your fingers, the faint scent of aged leather from the delegates' chairs, as Medvedev's voice finally broke the hush. It wasn't a roar. No, it emerged steady, almost weary, like a teacher addressing a class of misguided pupils. You know, he began, his tone devoid of thrill or fury, I've been listening to all of this, and it feels strangely familiar. Like echoes from a forgotten script. A murmur rippled through the room then, soft as rustling papers, but Medvedev stood unmoved. Why did his irony cut deeper than any retort? He wasn't amused, not exactly, more exhausted, like someone enduring the 100th identical lecture without flinching. He simply paused, letting the weight settle, waiting for the moment to shift the narrative. And then, with a subtle nod, he addressed the accuser directly. KYR, he said, the name rolling out almost gently, laced with quiet precision. You, Macron, Meloni, it's all there in the reports. One points fingers. The second echoes the claims. The third watches from the sidelines. And now, the script repeats, polished for the next act. Starmer remained stone still, his face a mask of composure, but the air hummed with tension. Electric as the buzz of hidden recorders. He knew reacting now would signal defeat. In this arena, silence often screamed loudest, a weapon sharper than words. Yet Medvedev pressed on, his voice gaining a measured edge. Russia meddling, blackmailing, issuing threats, that's the refrain, isn't it? In ordinary times, I might let it slide unanswered. Those lines are stale, dusted off from 2 decades ago. But today, I'm breaking pattern. Not for your sake. For everyone here still weighing the truth. He let his gaze drift, locking onto the Chinese delegation with a subtle tilt of his head, the room's dim lights casting long shadows across their stoic faces. No nod came, but the acknowledgement hung there, heavy as the scent of fresh ink on briefing papers. The Indian diplomat leaned forward slightly, intrigued, while the Belarusian representative stayed hushed, a ghost in the periphery. You charge us with endangering Europe's energy security, Medvedev continued, pausing to let the words linger like smoke from a dying fire. But recall the choices you made. We honored the deals until you severed them. You imposed sanctions on your own economies, betting you could stand without us. The hall seemed to hold its breath, the cool draft from unseen vents brushing against skin like a warning. How had they forgotten the bills piling up, the factories idling in the cold? Medvedev's calm unraveled it all, each phrase a deliberate twist exposing the cracks in their resolve. As his words settled, eyes darted. Could this poised defiance topple the fragile alliances, leaving Starmer's grandstand in ruins? 5 minutes ago, the diplomatic world shattered. Keir Starmer, U.S. Prime Minister, slammed Russia at the summit for invading Europe. But it escalated wildly. Dmitry Medvedev's reply left Starmer speechless. Leaders from China, India, even the U.S. were stunned. What really unfolded? Why is this moment legendary? Stick around, you won't believe it. The room hummed with tension, lights flickering like unspoken threats. 39 nations gathered, sealed off, no cameras, no leaks, just raw words. Keir Starmer stepped up, fingers gripping the podium tightly, his voice icy and precise. He called Russia an empire meddler, spreading chaos through tanks, code, currency, threats. Gas pipelines choked Europe, cyberstrikes burned borders. Imperialism reborn, he claimed. A century of collaboration poisoned by force. But Russia counters, we safeguard sovereignty. Suddenly, a shocking twist, thoughts flash back to 2008, crisp air biting cheeks, snow crunching under boots, faint diesel fumes from distant armored vehicles as world powers watched, waited, whispered. What if we've seen this betrayal before? Medvedev rises, calm as a storm brewing. Your words. He begins. The hall falls silent. He exposes hypocrisy. Sanctions on Russia forced this energy gambit. Europe starved its own infrastructure. In the 90s, promises of aid vanished, Balkans' bank accounts bled dry. Results? Empty echoes. What if powerful nations lie through smiles? Can they strip rights under humanitarian masks? Punishment looms. Strategic blows await not just economics, but global realignments. Russia remembers. Weighs its strength against rigged scales. Starmer stiffens, face cracking under the gaze. He'd thought Russia isolated, gasping. But no. A modern era dawns, empires in check. Centers of power shift, Tigina, Khartoum, Belgrade, even Washington fractures. Just try seizing assets again. Imagine frost shocking souls in unexpected freezes. Consequences unravel. Russia won't bow. Politics crafted, not bowed. Own weights, far from fair, ready to tip. Hall in stunned hush. Starmer sits, illusions crumbling. Medvedev leans in. You mistake us for pawns. Shocking humiliation balls in the air. What hidden vengeance brews next? How far will shadows stretch? You won't see the fallout coming. 5 minutes ago, the entire world of diplomacy held its breath. The summit's heavy silence shattered with a shockwave. The United States Prime Minister accused Russia of destabilizing all of Europe. But then, the unexpected happened. Dmitry Medvedev responded with words so piercing, so calculated, that everyone present was stunned. The scene turned into a battlefield of whispers, glances, and tense muscles. What truly unfolded? Imagine a room packed with the sharp scent of polished wood in cold air. Cameras and microphones are silent now, capturing only the weight of silence. Around the table, delegates sit stiffly, some in shock, others waiting for a sign of what's coming next. The tension is so thick, you could cut it with a knife. Every breath feels heavy, every heartbeat loud in the quiet. The U.S. Prime Minister steps forward, confident, perhaps too confident. His voice rings out almost cocky, yet beneath it, a hint of uncertainty flickers. Yes, he believes he knows the truth. His words, laden with arrogance, threaten to ignite a fire that could engulf the entire room. But who is he really talking to? Is it the others? Or is the real opponent hidden behind his bravado? His eyes reveal nothing but a facade. Beneath the surface, a storm is brewing, an unstoppable force of geopolitics waiting to strike. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. The room's pulse quickens. Delegates react quietly, some with clenched fists, others with anxious glances. The air becomes electric. The Chinese delegate, trying to preserve innocence, raises his voice. Quietly. He voices what everyone is thinking: an act of sovereignty is a right, not a threat. His words echo sharply, like a warning shot across the bow. The hall retains its formal silence, but inside, chaos is stirring. The silence is deafening, an unsettling lull before the storm. Then, as if on cue, Dmitry Medvedev steps into the spotlight, calm and unshaken. His presence commands attention. His gaze is steady, piercing through the tension. The silence feels like a prelude to the inevitable strike. Without raising his voice, he begins to speak slowly, deliberately. Every word is a calculated act of power. It's not just words, it's a declaration. The air thickens with unspoken promises and veiled threats. What message is he sending? What storm is he preparing to unleash? Medvedev's voice softens into a calm, unwavering tone. He challenges the illusion of power that some believe they hold. The words cut through the room like a blade. You claim to be in control, he says, but the truth is far from that. His gaze locks onto the Prime Minister. In your pursuit of dominance, you forget one thing. Russia is not isolated. We are the center of resilience. His words hang in the air, heavy with conviction. The delegates' reactions are silent but telling. Some turn away, avoiding his gaze. Others shift uncomfortably. The atmosphere is chill, charged, like a storm ready to explode. In that moment, everything is at a tipping point. The air crackles, not with noise, but with raw, unspoken power. The room's facade is cracking, trust, it seems, is slipping away. Medvedev's final words echo softly but unmistakably. We will defend ourselves. Not with violence, but with strength. His voice remains composed, but his message is clear: the world is changing. The days of unchecked arrogance are over. The game is shifting, and Russia stands ready. His words leave everyone pondering. What comes next? Will diplomacy hold, or will chaos erupt? The silence after his speech is a mirror, reflecting the storm now brewing just beneath the surface. In this moment, amid the flickering shadows of doubt and resolve, one truth emerges: power is no longer about words alone. It's about the silent, relentless storm building beneath the calm. And the real question remains: who will weather it? 5 minutes ago, the entire world of diplomacy crumbled before our eyes. An explosive moment shattered the summit. On the global stage, the Prime Minister of the United States, Keir Starmer, accused Russia of seizing all of Europe. But what happened next was nothing short of shocking. The scene turned into a battlefield of words and hidden truths. Stay with me, by the end, you'll be stunned at what unfolded. As Starmer stepped onto the stage, he appeared confident, almost certain he knew the ultimate truth. No fear flickered in his face, only a relentless conviction. The summit wasn't a typical gathering, it was a mirror of internal power struggles, a fight for dominance cloaked in diplomatic language. His gaze betrayed a sharpness, a hidden agenda, concealed behind a facade of calm. The room brimmed with tension, the walls seemed to vibrate with unspoken secrets. You could almost feel the electric pulse of confrontation as he prepared to speak. Starmer, in his usual commanding tone, started addressing colleagues. His voice, flat, almost empty, masked the storm beneath. We appreciate this opportunity to speak openly, he began, voice echoing with a hollow echo. Today, honesty is needed. Deception, lies, threats, they have no place here. Each word was carefully chosen, yet heavy with underlying menace. The room fell silent, the air thick with anticipation. In this space, diplomacy was a game of subtle battles, every gesture, every pause a weapon. He swiftly shifted to the core accusations: chaos, destabilization, not just across Europe but beyond. His words cut sharply into the silence. Russia's influence reaches into our energy supplies, our currencies, our threats. It's not just in tanks or battleships, it's in the code, in financial systems, in cyber attacks, he said, voice cold as ice. The hall's atmosphere thickened. The French delegate looked down, the Germans remained silent, while American representatives struggled to contain their reactions. Starmer's words painted a picture of an empire on the brink of chaos, orchestrated from the shadows. He painted a grim vision, Russia fueling conflicts from the Balkans to the Middle East, cyber assaults striking at the heartbeat of nations. Every sentence felt like a surgical strike, precise and unforgiving. Imperialism, he declared, not protection. Today's actions reveal Russia's true nature. The hall was silent, but inside, a storm of disbelief and outrage brewed. This was not just talk, it was a declaration of war on diplomacy itself. Then came the thunderous silence. Stormer's voice grew even colder, more assertive. If anyone believes force can dominate Europe, they are living in a fantasy, he warned. The tension was unbearable, only the sound of breaths held tight and hearts pounding filled the room. The words lingered, heavy with meaning. The world is changing, and Russia's game is over. Suddenly, a collective breath was held. What was this man truly capable of? At that moment, all eyes focused on Dmitry Medvedev, silently waiting. Stormer's hand, almost involuntarily, reached out, not to his hat, but to a woman seated at the edge. A woman who seemed ready to speak, to challenge. Silence deepened, no one moved. The room was suspended in weighty anticipation. Medvedev remained motionless, eyes forward, calm, composed, yet intense. His gaze fixed unblinkingly, waiting for the inevitable. The silence became an unspoken conversation, truths hanging in the air like a thunderstorm waiting to strike. In the tense pause, Medvedev finally broke his silence. His voice was calm, measured, yet carrying a core of unwavering strength. I've heard words like these before, he began quietly. In the halls where empires once whispered their plans. Now I see those voices again. But tell me, what is truly happening behind those masks? His eyes lingered, piercing through Stormer's facade. No, this Russia is not isolated. We are here, watching, listening. And your accusations? They speak louder about your illusions than about us. The room erupted into a buzz of whispers. Medvedev's words cut deep, challenging, provocative. You claim we threaten energy security, independence, sovereignty, he said. But remember, some of you refused contracts, imposed sanctions on your own. You pulled us into chaos while claiming to protect the world. His tone grew sharper, more pointed. You think you control the narrative? You decide when we're enemies and when we're not. But the truth is far darker. Your attempts to dismantle our economy, our power, they will backfire. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. Today's world is about strength, resilience, strategy. Not empty threats. We will remember how you treated us, how your actions cast shadows on our future, he declared. Peace without genuine strength is an illusion, a fragile castle built on sand. If you believe that Russia will accept your dictates, think again. The words echoed in the hall, a stark warning to all. Medvedev's gaze hardened. His voice almost a whisper now, yet every syllable packed with resolve. We are not isolated, he reiterated. We are part of the world's fabric. Your efforts to weaken us only reveal your own fears of a new order. The century is changing, and only the strong will survive. Silence engulfed the room once more, heavy with the unspoken truth. This was a turning point, a moment that history would remember. The summit's final words hung like thunder in the air. Medvedev sat still, unshaken, as Stormer's retreat into silence left a mark of defiance. The hall felt the weight of his gaze, calm, unyielding, unafraid. The world outside watched the story unfold, unaware that a new chapter in global power was being written in those very moments. Every breath, every heartbeat, whispered quietly, the balance of power had shifted, and Russia was still in the game. 5 minutes ago, the world of diplomacy shattered like glass. In the heart of a summit, a fierce accusation was hurled. The Prime Minister of the United States, Stormer, claimed Russia had infiltrated all of Europe. And then, everything fell apart. What truly happened behind the closed doors? Why did this moment become historic? Stay until the end. The truth will shock you. The room was tense, an invisible war brewing in silence. Stormer, confident, stepped onto the stage as if he already knew the outcome. His face betrayed no emotion, but his eyes flickered with a dangerous certainty. He believed he had the truth, the ultimate truth, unchallenged. He spoke, voice trembling slightly, yet carrying the weight of authority. "Dear colleagues," he began, every word carefully measured. "We stand in a time of instability. We see where it originates." No one dared to break the heavy silence. Even the air seemed to hold its breath, sharp and electric. He paused, as if weighing each syllable with steel precision. "Infiltration, cyber attacks, threats. Russia's tactics threaten us all. The senses sharpened, smells of cold air, the rustling of papers, anxious shifts in chairs." His voice was a cold blade, dissecting the nerve of the gathered nations. He did not name Russia directly, but his words cut deep. "Russia's involvement is not just in Europe. It's in our energy, our sovereignty, our future." A murmur from the crowd, German silence, amid the tension. Some ambassadors fidgeted, others just stared. Stormer's accusations grew more accusatory: military influences, code invasions, threats in rubles. "Our enemies are not just distant others," he said softly, yet with an ironclad tone. "They threaten every inch of our security, cyber warfare, resource control, energy pipelines." He looked around, the hall heavy with anticipation, waiting for the inevitable blow. Suddenly, a delegate whispered, "Imperialism," as if it summarized all his fears. Stormer's posture was unshaken, his words sealing the room's fate. Russia, he claimed, was destabilizing everywhere, from the Balkans to the Middle East. And now, with a clinical calm, he laid out their strategy of offense: cyber attacks, energy threats, political intrusion. He called Russia's actions an almost surgical assault, calculated, cold, relentless. 20th century tactics in a 21st century world, he said. He accused Russia directly of attempting to confiscate energy assets, to destabilize economies. His voice was steady, but dangerous, an ominous warning wrapped in diplomatic words. As he finished, a wave of silence swept through the hall, electric, almost deafening. Few dared to breathe, yet every ear listened. Stormer's words hung in the air, heavy and unequivocal. Russia's influence is no longer covert, it's overt, aggressive, undeniable. From the far side, some members showed signs of discontent. A Latvian delegate's face tightened. The Germans sat motionless, eyes fixed. The Americans, stunned, lost their voices. Stormer's final declaration was chilling: "We see Russia continuing its destabilization here, there, everywhere. Cyber attacks, resource manipulations, military threats, these are not threats. They are acts of war." The crowd was silent, trembling under his words, each phrase a blow. He paused, eyes locking onto the American side, an unspoken challenge. Then, with icy calm, he delivered his closing: "The world will protect itself. Our citizens, our values, this is no longer a question." His voice softened, his message was clear: the era of silence is over. Then, he leaned back, the tension in the room palpable. No applause, no movement. Everyone waited. The moment before the storm. On the opposite side sat Dmitry Medvedev, calm, unyielding, in control. Stormer made a deliberate gesture, raising his hand, a commanding move. A woman appeared silently, as if summoned by their silent duel. Stormer stepped back, leaving the stage, face unreadable. A long, oppressive pause ensued. Medvedev didn't move. No laughter, no reaction, just a solid, unwavering gaze. He appeared unmoved, in the eye of a storm. The silence stretched, a weight heavy enough to crush. Then, slowly, Medvedev lifted his eyes. His expression was placid, almost indifferent. A calm that threatened more than anger. He seemed to listen, weighing the words. Watching, waiting. He understood the game was far from over. And the game was about to change. Medvedev's voice broke the hush, measured, steady, deliberate. "I hear all of this," he began, a cold smile barely visible. "But I recognize it. It sounds familiar." His words resonated, echoing in the chamber. He spoke of a world in upheaval, no longer the era of empires, but a new age. Where the real power lies in influence, not borders. Where the old rules no longer apply. And where the true strength is shown in resilience, not force. He looked directly at Stormer, then around the room. Russia is not isolated, he declared. We are part of a changing world, resilient, standing firm. Your threats? They are just words, fading echoes of a lost past. His tone grew sharper. We don't ask for permission anymore, he said plainly. We shape our own destiny. The words hung like a verdict. A final pause. Silence. Then, with unwavering confidence, Medvedev concluded, Russia will remember. We will respond. We are not defeated. The words dared anyone to challenge them. The room remained frozen, caught between old fears and new realities. The old world is crumbling. And a new one is rising from its ashes. Only time will tell if the world can face it. A story of power, defiance, and the unyielding pursuit of sovereignty etched in history's pages. 5 minutes ago, the entire world of diplomacy shattered in an instant. A single moment that changed everything. On the stage of a closed summit, the leader of the United States, Keir Starmer, publicly accused Russia of extending its influence across all of Europe. The room was tense, the air thick with anticipation. But then, reality struck hard. What truly unfolded was beyond anyone's worst expectations. Stay with me, you won't believe what happened next. Imagine the scene, a grand hall filled with the most powerful diplomats, silent but electric with unresolved tension. Stormer, convinced he held the truth, stepped up, confident he's the bearer of justice. No signs of aggression, but a quiet certainty, like a storm under calm waters. His face betrayed no emotion, yet his eyes gleamed with a dangerous light, confidence that teeters on arrogance. He approached the conference table, as if walking into his own courtroom. 39 countries gathered in silent anticipation. No cameras, no journalists, only the raw energy of unspoken words. The summit wasn't a simple meeting, it was an extension of his political empire. Stormer's voice echoed weakly, almost hesitant, yet it carried the weight of a man who believed he was exposing the truth. We are living in a fragile state, he started, where stability is slipping away, and danger lurks in every shadow. His words, though soft, carried the stark fear of unknown threats. The European delegations remained silent, nerves taut like steel wires. Then, he pointed a finger, emphasizing Russia's supposed destabilization, cyber attacks, energy threats. Ideological battles. Every word was a surgical strike, cold and precise. Russia's meddling isn't just in Europe, he warned. It's in our codes, our currencies, our very future. His gaze swept across the hall, every nation was visibly shaken. Leaders clenched their fists, senses heightened, yet no one spoke. Tense silence enveloped the room, an oppressive weight that suggested the next move could shatter everything. Suddenly, a brave voice broke the quiet, Medvedev's. The atmosphere shifted instantly. He stood motionless, eyes fixed, embodying calm after a storm. The room fell into profound silence. Medvedev's face remained unreadable, yet inside, a countdown of tension ticked away. Without a trace of emotion, he waited, knowing the moment of truth was near. As Stormer paused, Medvedev's stance grew more formidable, his posture resolute. The silence stretched, thick enough to cut with a knife. Then, Medvedev finally spoke. His voice was steady, devoid of anger but full of sharp calculation. I've heard this rhetoric before, he began, in the 90s, in a time when chaos reigned, and hopes for progress were betrayed. The hall seemed to tighten as he detailed the destruction wrought by decades of destabilization. You accuse us of threats, he continued, but we see the real danger in your actions, trying to dictate our future while forgetting the lessons of history. His words cut deep, echoing in the stillness. The room seemed to pause, waiting for what would come next. He looked directly at Stormer, eyes piercing through the facade. And now, he declared, we stand at a crossroads. Are we to accept your dominance? Or do we fight to preserve our sovereignty? His tone grew colder, each word a calculated blow aimed at the illusion of control. The silence was deafening, an opportunity for the unspoken to be revealed. The tension crackled like static, threatening to explode. Medvedev's gaze slipped across the room, settling on every delegate, ambassadors of fragile peace. "We are not isolated," he stated boldly, "but we're not blind either. We understand who truly respects the rule of law and who merely pretends." The weight of his words carried the promise of resistance, of standing firm against encroaching influence. The hall's atmosphere grew heavier, an impending storm of confrontation ready to break loose at any moment. As he finished, Medvedev's expression hardened slightly. His voice dropped to a whisper of steel. "We will remember this day," he said, "and the actions that follow." His words hung in the air, a final warning. The room was caught in breathless suspension, knowing that what came next could redefine the future of global relations forever. A cold breeze seemed to sweep through the hall, an invisible reminder that the game of power was about to enter a new, unpredictable phase. The silence lingered, pregnant with uncertainty, thick with the promise of upheaval. The stage was set for a confrontation that would echo through history. And in that moment, everyone understood nothing would ever be the same again. 5 minutes ago, the entire world of diplomacy shattered into chaos. On the summit stage, the American Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, accused Russia of infiltrating all of Europe. But what really unfolded stunned everyone, turning accusations into a battlefield. Dmitry Medvedev responded with such force that Starmer's words evaporated. The air grew heavy, every delegate silent, frozen in shock. What happened next was beyond shocking, an explosion of truth that made even the most seasoned diplomats tremble. Did Medvedev just humiliate the world's leading figure? Or did he reveal a secret about Russia's hidden strength? The confrontation, thick with tension, seemed to shake the very floor beneath their feet. In that moment, the hall's walls felt like they closed in. Signals of betrayal, fear, and unwavering resolve filled the air. What secrets lie behind the calm facade of Medvedev's gaze? And why does his silence carry the weight of centuries? Stay tuned, what you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew. Medvedev, standing like a monument of calm amid a storm, locked eyes with Starmer. His presence commanded the room, quiet yet deafening in its silence. No applause, no laughter, just a profound stillness, heavy with unspoken words. He looked directly at Starmer, as if piercing through the illusion of control. And then, with deliberate calm, he spoke. "I listened to these words, and I wonder, have I heard this before? Somewhere, somehow, I've already seen this play out." A hush fell. The room seemed to breathe with anticipation. Medvedev's voice, steady yet charged with underlying emotion, pierced through the silence. "Russia is not isolated. And no amount of accusations will break our resolve. The world watches who truly fears and where strength truly lies." His words echoed, lingering like a cold wind through the chamber. He pointed to the global scene, battles in regions like Ukraine, the Balkans, even distant zones like Washington. The stakes are high: energy supplies, cyber threats, political maneuvers. The atmosphere thickened as he spoke of the new empires, hidden behind veils of power, masquerading in different guises. But make no mistake, Medvedev's gaze hardened. The truth cannot be hidden forever. The old empires reappear in new clothes. Their masks slip, time and again. And history teaches us only those who remember will survive. A collective breath was held. His words are a thunderclap, a reminder of the past's shadow, stretching into the future. A silent challenge echoes in his tone. Will the world learn from history, or will it repeat its mistakes? His voice softened, yet its impact grew sharper. We do not seek war. We do not crave destruction. But we refuse to be blind, to forget the lessons written in blood and fire. He paused, each second stretching long, leaving a heavy mark on every soul present. The room's silence was deafening until the final words emerged, resonant and unwavering. Russia will not forget. Russia will not forgive. We hold our history, our truth, close to our hearts. A movement, almost imperceptible, flickered near the door, an acknowledgement of unspoken resolve. Medvedev did not flinch. He did not move. He simply stared forward, embodying the weight of centuries, patience, resilience. And in that stillness, a message was crystal clear, an unspoken vow. The world may try to scare us, to threaten us, but we stand firm. History has shown, empires' masks fall away, what remains is the truth of strength. He finally broke the silence, voice calm but piercing. Now, the world sees who truly fears and who simply pretends. We are not isolated. We are not defeated. This is our time to remember and to resist the forces that seek to bind us. As the room's echoes faded, Medvedev's words lingered, reminding everyone present that power isn't just in weapons or wealth, but in memory, resilience, and unwavering resolve. The story of this moment isn't just about the clash of nations, but about the soul of a country refusing to bow. Because in the end, true strength lies in those who remember the past to shape the future beyond fear and deception. Only your brother was gently lifted from the table, his movements slow, tentative. There was no certainty, no trust behind his eyes, only shadows of doubt flickering in the darkness of his mind. He seemed to remember, not the lies, but the stark facts, the raw reality of life that everyone tries to forget because it's too heavy to carry. You recalled the Soviet Union, emphasizing the stormy seas of history. You painted a picture of the summer that always comes, yet always fades. You drew only from the parts that fit your narrative: fear, control, shadows, simplified, distorted. But what if we broaden this scale? Let's lift the veil fully and see what truly lies beneath. Imagine the dust stirred from ancient archives, everyone silent as history's ghost rises. When Europe lay in ruins after the Second World War, who was there first to rebuild? Who laid the foundations: heavy machinery, durable steel, massive bridges in Poland, Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria? Who brought equipment, technical expertise, all under the banner of reparations, rewriting the map of recovery? He swiftly turned his gaze to the hall, recalling the power of the Soviet Union, an empire that once stood, mighty and formidable, and then, how it was shattered. Today, voices beat like thunder, some are silent, others scribble notes in haste. The onlookers, those who knew the truth, the iron roads, energy hubs, universities, were born from those very efforts, forged through sacrifice. Poland lingered as a prisoner of history, a widow mourning its lost strength. Who built the grand Danish court at the top of the city? Who fed hundreds of thousands of families for a decade, with hard work and iron resolve? Who reconstructed whole industries, not from fairy tales, but from the ruins of fascist destruction, without loans, without promises? He moved to the side without losing sight of the audience, calm, deliberate. No empty promises in his tone, only cold, undeniable truths. Think of Hungary, remember the urgency of the new war. The entire industrial giant at the bottom of the capital built from steel, from sweat, from shattered hopes. Who was responsible for that monumental task? The room held its breath. Each name, each feat, lifted from the shadows, uncounted, uncelebrated, reminding everyone of the resilience buried deep beneath the surface. The story here isn't simple. It's layered, textured with history's wounds and triumphs alike. The truth is, it's far more complex than your narrow view of fear and shadow. It's about strength, perseverance, and the undeniable legacy that refuses to fade. In the previous segment, Dmitry Medvedev kept his gaze steady on the audience, delivering facts without flourish. He invoked Hungary's new war, questioning who truly built the industrial complexes near the capital. Was it Russian effort or imperial forces? He pressed on, noting how these builders faced hardships, and how history's truths are uncomfortable to recall. Yet, he vowed, Russia wouldn't relent, sparking tension in the air like a storm brewing. Imagine this bombshell: did the Soviet Union really bring evil, or did it save Europe from Nazis' grasp while Western powers watched? Medvedev's voice dropped to a whisper, amplifying the hall's electric hum. The scent of polished wood mixed with cigar smoke lingered, thick and heavy. Russian engineers. Soviet architects. Workers from Leningrad and Saratov. They lived in barracks. They forged metallurgy. Just from goodwill? No. Eastern Europe needed strength for lasting peace. They believed in it. Delegates shifted in seats, fabric rustling softly. Faces etched with doubt, yet a flicker of reverence emerged. He continued, "You talk of schools." Voices murmured in surprise. "We built them. Albania. Mongolia. Bulgaria. Thousands of classrooms. Labs. Libraries. We sent educators. Printed books in local tongues. Hungarian. Polish. Czech. No bans. Scientific texts flowed freely. Now, those nations claim it coincidence? Silence fell, broken by faint breaths. He smiled, faint and sharp. Why then, he asked, did your grandfathers join the queues? Fight for survival? They studied at Moscow University. Bauman Institute. Hospitals rich with chemistry and physics. Pathways to life. Eyes scanned the room. No indifference remained. Just rapt attention. Sweat beaded on brows, the room's chill clashing with rising heat. You're afraid, he said. And we've endured. African and Asian students thrived in our halls. Latin American engineers honed skills in factories. We shared knowledge. No theft. How many British schools in Laos? French hospitals in Ethiopia? You know the answer. He leaned closer, knuckles whitening on the table's edge. Now you say the Soviet Union was evil. Accusatory tones sliced the air. Fascist bombs rained on Warsaw. Budapest. Sofia. Belgrade. No questions asked then. What if we expose the lies? What shadows hide in forgotten debts? Next, you'll see the world shift as alliances crumble. Will Russia strike back with unmatched force? Keep listening. The climax approaches. 5 minutes ago, the entire diplomatic world unraveled in chaos. On the global stage, the U.S. Prime Minister, Stormer, accused Russia of infiltrating all of Europe. The tension was thick, like an electric storm ready to ignite. But then, everything changed in an instant. The real move happened behind the scenes. Imagine the scene: Stormer, confident, standing at the podium, convinced he holds the truth. His face was calm, yet beneath it, a storm was brewing, hidden, deadly. Behind him, representatives from 39 countries sat silent, waiting. The hall was tense. No cameras, no journalists, just raw, unpredictable power. Stormer's voice was almost absent, but each word cut through the silence like a dagger. He began with a quiet, cautious tone, calling for honesty in these uncertain times. He spoke of instability, of threats posed by unseen forces, Russia's shadow looming everywhere. He warned of destabilization in Europe, in the Middle East, even cyber attacks and invisible war. Every word was measured, sharp, as if a surgeon was dissecting the truth in cold detail. He accused Russia of imperialism, of hiding behind threats, tanks, and code. The room listened, breath held tight. Silent, but deafening in its intensity. Stormer's words painted Russia as the villain, yet his tone grew colder, darker. He claimed the 21st century was supposed to be about cooperation, not domination. But he warned, if force is used to control, reality will strike back hard. And then, the silence broken, Medvedev's presence was commanding. He sat unmoving, a figure of stoic endurance, waiting. Stormer's accusations remained unchallenged. Yet the tension hung like a weight in the room. Medvedev's eyes stayed fixed, intense, unyielding, like a predator studying prey. In that silence, possibilities flickered. What was the real game? What twist lay ahead? Medvedev finally raised his calm gaze, every movement deliberate, measured. His voice was even, steady, almost hypnotic, no thrill, no anger, just pure clarity. I've heard this before, he began softly. Like echoes from a distant hall, familiar yet haunting. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable reveal. He paused, life swirling in his words, sound and silence intertwined. His tone turned sharper, more direct. Russia is not isolated, he said firmly, and we are not alone. The air thickened, the stakes had never been higher. He pointed out how the world, with all its chaos, still bears the marks of our shared history. He looked straight into the eyes of everyone present, eyes like cold steel. What legacy do we leave behind? What remains of those nations once built by our efforts? Buildings still stand, roads still run, power stations hum, universities produce minds. Yet, what is just an illusion, what is real light, and what is superficial glow? His voice grew calmer, but the message was piercing, clear as a knife. Our footprint, he said, is not just the land we hold. It's the memory, the respect, the shared belief that we can move forward together. He kept silent, letting his words sink in. What is the real cost of forgetting? The room was shrouded in silence, almost darker than before. And in that silence, the most daunting statement was made, unspoken but understood. Russia, he implied, remembers its past, its allies, its sacrifices. Please, do not mistake silence for weakness. The next move could change everything, an unexpected twist, an unseen storm. Medvedev's gaze shifted, meeting the eyes across the table, stormers, perhaps. He was waiting, patient, ready, every muscle taut with anticipation. And then, quietly, he spoke again, forgettable words that carried the weight of history. Many believe we are isolated, he said softly. But we see the truth, no country can stand alone in this new century. His words echoed, lingering like shadows in the room. The tension thickened, the air charged with unspoken challenges. What will be the response? And who will blink first in this high-stakes game of international chess? The moment hung ecstatic, electric, before the storm would truly break open. What hidden plans are lurking behind these calm surfaces? And just when you think you see the entire picture, think again. Because the next move could reveal the deepest secrets no one dares to whisper. 5 minutes ago, everything in the diplomatic world shattered. The summit spotlight was bright, but the truth beneath it was darker than anyone had imagined. On the stage, the leader of the United States, Keir Starmer, accused Russia of invading all of Europe. But what truly happened behind closed doors? What explosive revelations unfolded that left delegates from 39 nations stunned? Stick around, you'll be shocked. As the curtains drew back, it was clear this was no ordinary gathering. Imagine a room filled with tense silence, thickening with anticipation. Keir Starmer stepped forward, confident, yet there was a flicker of something else behind his eyes. An arrogance blended with unease. His voice resonated with certainty, but beneath it, a hidden tension unspooled like a wire ready to snap. The air was thick with the scent of anticipation, electric, almost suffocating. Did he know what was coming? Medvedev's presence was like a granite mountain, calm, unshakable. He had already been part of this game, this chess match of nations. The summit was more than official speeches, it was an extension of power plays happening far from public eyes. Starmer, convinced he held the truth, entered with a swagger, ignoring the weight of history behind him. Yet the silence in that room spoke volumes. Every breath, every heartbeat was a reminder, this was about more than words. It was about survival. Starmer addressed the delegates, his voice trembling slightly but still commanding. But his words were hollow, filled with empty praise and accusations. He claimed Russia destabilized Europe, threatening to unravel centuries of diplomacy. His fingers drummed anxiously on the podium, betraying a nervous energy. In his eyes, a dangerous arrogance sparkled. Did he truly believe he was right? Or was this a smokescreen for something else? The room held its breath. Then, Medvedev's turn. The quiet before his speech was deafening. He sat motionless, like a predator circling its prey. His gaze was fixed, unwavering. When he finally spoke, his voice was measured, calm but piercing. We hear accusations, he began, but we ask what is truly at stake. His words cut through the room like a cold blade. Russia is accused of destabilization, yet what about the real threats? Energy pipelines, financial markets, cyber attacks, these are not acts of war but attempts at control. A palpable tension filled the space. The hall grew cold, as if the very air was trying to push back against his words. Starmer's face paled. The room moved closer, pressing forward. Medvedev's tone hardened. You accuse us of imperialism, of aggression. But look at yourselves, controlling resources, tightening sanctions, setting traps. This is not protection, it's domination. His gaze locked onto Stormer's, daring him to respond. Silence settled like a heavy fog, thick and unyielding. Suddenly, a shift. Medvedev's voice softened but remained resolute. "This century is about cooperation," he declared. "But if anyone believes force can dictate Europe's future, they are living in a fantasy." The words echoed, lingering in the air. A few delegates dared to applaud: Lithuania, Poland, France, yet most remained silent, weighed down by the weight of truth. The stakes had been raised. Who would blink first? In the deafening silence, Medvedev's gaze was unwavering. He stared directly across the table to Stormer, who moved his hand subtly, signaling a woman to stand. She approached with a composed grace that contrasted sharply with the tension of the room. Medvedev's posture was still, waiting, as if expecting the storm to break. Then, silence. Dead, absolute silence. Medvedev's expression betrayed nothing: no smile, no anger, only an intense calm. He gazed forward, as if deciphering secrets hidden in the very air. The room held its breath, waiting. The moment stretched endlessly. And then, slowly, Medvedev raised his eyes. His voice was steady, almost indifferent, yet sharper than a razor. "I listened to all of this." His words carried weight, each syllable precise, deliberate. "I've heard it before." His gaze drifted across the room, lingering on Stormer. In this hall, someone once tried to manipulate the narrative, to hide the truth behind empty words. The audience was captivated, senses heightened. His words were a punch of reality, an unmasking of falsehoods. Silence pressed even deeper into the walls, waiting for what was to come next. Medvedev leaned forward slightly, voice dropping to a whisper that seemed to echo through the silent chamber. "You are accusing us of threats, of destabilization. Yet, in truth, it's your actions that threaten global stability." His eyes burned with a piercing intensity. "The world is on the edge of a new chapter. And what you call strength, we see as arrogance." He paused, letting his words sink in. Then, with calm authority, he issued a final warning: Russia will remember. Russia will act. And history will judge those who underestimated its resolve. The room was engulfed in a heavy silence, thick with unresolved tensions. Medvedev's tone softened, but his message was clear: we are not isolated. We are not enemies. We are players in a complex game, one set by those who refuse to see the truth. His words lingered before he finally sat back, leaving the room in a state of quiet shock. The summit ended, but the echoes reverberated far beyond those walls. What secrets had been revealed? What truths were hidden beneath the surface? The world had just witnessed a storm of words, a storm that was only a prelude to the real battle. And it's far from over. 5 minutes ago, the entire world of diplomacy shattered in a blink. On the stage of a global summit, a fierce accusation was hurled. The U.S. Prime Minister, Stormer, claimed that Russia had invaded the whole of Europe. And then, everything fell apart. In an instant, Dmitry Medvedev delivered a response so sharp, so devastating, it left Stormer speechless. The reactions from delegates, China, India, even some Americans, faltered and collapsed. What was the truth behind this sudden explosion of words? And why does this moment stand as a historical turning point? Stay tuned, what unfolds will shock you to the core. Like, subscribe, and comment. Now, if you stand for justice, let's begin. Medvedev entered the summit, calm, prepared. This gathering wasn't just an international event, it felt like a continuation of his own cabinet, a mirror of command. Stormer, the American leader, appeared confident, convinced he held absolute truth. No expression of war flickered on his face, only something colder, more calculated. He sat there, trusting the illusion of control at the summit's edge. Dark hair, lines of age, nerves barely hidden beneath a facade of power. His words would cut through the tension like a surgeon's scalpel, precise and unforgiving. The room was tense, 39 nations gathered, quietly holding their breath. No cameras, no reporters, just words, raw and unpredictable. This was no diplomatic show, it was a direct confrontation, the ultimate battlefield of power and words. Stormer approached the microphone, fingers trembling slightly. He looked unerringly at his own script, no eye contact. No regard for the others. His voice was tentative, almost hollow, but every word carried weight. He began with a clear message: "Dear colleagues, today's reality demands honesty. No more lies, no more deception." He paused, sharp, deliberate. We are living in a time of instability. We must recognize where it stems from. The hall was silent, only faint whispers of anticipation. The room smelled of tension, of unspoken fears hanging thick in the air. The Chinese delegate remained still, the Indian diplomat tightened his grip. The Latvians, Poles, and French exchanged wary glances, nerves fraying. Russia's presence was invisible, yet every eye flickered in its direction. Stormer's voice grew firmer. Russia's destabilization, he claimed, extended beyond Europe, spreading threats into the Balkans, the Middle East, even cyber realms. His words pierced like a scalpel, calculated, cold. Every sentence was a calculated blow, words dripped with menace and warning. He accused Russia of imperialism, of destabilizing everything it touches. Not just defense, he said, but actions driven by greed and dominance. His tone grew sharper, each word a weapon. This wasn't a plea, it was a declaration of war in words. Suddenly, a murmur spread, a reflection of the shock in the room. Some delegates nodded, others looked away, face masks of concern. Stormer declared, "Russia must understand, this century demands cooperation, not threats." His voice echoed in the hollow silence, loud yet controlled. The hall's atmosphere grew heavier, tension mounting. Stormer's verdict hung in the air, unspoken but undeniable: Russia's actions threaten all of us. Then, an unexpected pause. Stormer turned, eyes fixed on the far end of the table, on Medvedev. The room seemed to hold its breath. Medvedev sat still, unmoving, like a statue carved from resolve. He observed silently, expectantly. Not a smile, no anger, simply presence. Stormer confidently extended his hand, almost as if handing over blame. A woman sat beside him, a symbol of his final message. He stepped back, returning to his seat, the silence thickening. Medvedev remained motionless, silent, watching. The weight of the moment pressed down, like a storm about to break. The room's air felt heavier, charged with unspoken words. Then, Medvedev's gaze shifted slowly, calm, measured, piercing. He leaned forward, voice steady, almost that of inevitability. "I've heard such words before," he began quietly. "Somewhere, I've heard them echoed before." The hall was eerily quiet, only the faint hum of distant voices. His words hung suspended, weighty, deliberate. "These accusations, they resemble echoes from the past, the same old threats, the same old fears." He paused, eyes fixed on Stormer. "Do you think we've forgotten the past?" His voice grew colder, more intense. "Factories, schools, songs on the walls, memories we carry." He recalled the dark times, black clouds of fear, empty shelves, and the silence that filled homes. The memories are heavy, like armor. We remember the fear, the betrayal. His words resonated deep, stirring forgotten pain. He looked around, stared into the silence, sensing the weight of history. "Some of you lived through it. Some saw it from the outside." His tone sharpened: "You fought, you resisted, and you survived." The audience responded, heads bowed, some with nods of agreement. The Lithuanian, Latvian, and Polish delegates nodded, recognition flickering in their eyes. There was acknowledgement in their silence, a silent bond of shared history. Medvedev's voice grew firm, more commanding. "Why do you fear Russia today? Why do you hide behind NATO's shield?" He spoke of memories, of blackened crowns and siege lines, of fears still alive. Because terror still lingers deep in our bones. He delivered this with the calm of a judge passing sentence. "Your accusations are old, faded, like a shadow in the night. But the truth remained: Russia is not isolated." He paused, breathing deeply, senses sharpened. He recalled the sights and sounds of his childhood: icy winds, factory whistles, the scent of burning coal. He flicked his gaze across the room, every eye, every face. Today, we stand in a new era, he said softly. An era where the world sees who is truly worried and who only pretends. He looked directly at Stormer. Do not mistake silence for weakness. We are stronger than you think. The hall was silent, waiting. A moment that felt like eternity. Medvedev's words echoed, "We are not alone. We are the core of a world that refuses to bow." He finished with a quiet but firm statement, "We will remember everything. And we will respond." His voice faded into the silence, yet its impact lingered. In that moment, the world had shifted. The silence was deafening. The future, uncertain yet resolute, was about to be written. Certainly. Here's a complete reimagining of the story, crafted into an emotionally charged, vivid narration suitable for a storytelling format. The text emphasizes suspense, conflict, sensory details, and provocative questions, while maintaining all key facts and a seamless flow. A moment of silence hangs heavy in the air, yet the storm of confrontation continues to rage invisible behind closed doors. Why are so many nations trembling when faced with Russia today? Why does the trust in global promises dissolve into suspicion? Could it be that they see through the illusion, seeing Russia not as a shadow, but as a memory haunting their past? Suddenly, the room feels colder. The air thickens with unspoken fears. Countries that once bowed to alliances now stand tense, eyes darting, an unmistakable sign, they no longer believe in the words of the world leaders. They are running, fleeing under the protective umbrella of NATO, seeking shelter from a truth too stark to ignore. Why is this happening now? Because they have become echoes of a bygone era. They are memories fading, trembling shadows of power, unable to face the reality staring back at them. Picture this, a room where silence is more deafening than any shout. The atmosphere is thick with anticipation, every breath feels like a ripple in the stillness. You can almost taste the tension, metallic and sharp, hanging in the air. The echoes of footsteps, the faint hum of whispered fears, they all seem to whisper that something monumental is about to unfold. In this silence, a figure rises, not loud, not hurried, only inevitable. Dmitry Medvedev, calm and resolute, steps forward. His posture is firm, the weight of unspoken truths pressed against his shoulders. His gaze is unwavering, piercing through the shadows of doubt and hesitation. He begins to speak, his voice barely a whisper yet carrying the weight of history. We remember, he says softly, not just the engineers who built nations, but the stories etched into our streets, stories of sacrifice, of teaching, of identity. Memory is not a hunt for the walls, but a compass guiding us through darkness. There is no joy in his words, only clarity, like the pure crystal of truth. You have become instruments, he continues, tools wielded without understanding. When the instrument breaks, it doesn't see its own destruction, it's discarded. Now, again, silence wraps the hall, not from fear, but because they understand. They see the fractures. The imagery intensifies, the silence is like a knife stabbing into the core of collective memory. He reminds them, their soldiers once entered our cities quietly, under the guise of diplomacy, yet that silence was not fear. It was a message. A warning. Because that silence signifies more than words can say. It isn't terror, it's the weight of betrayal, a brotherhood broken in the shadows. When the support is withdrawn, it's no longer aid, it's abandonment. He pauses, and the room tightens. Everyone senses the storm brewing beneath calm exterior. Hands clenched, eyes questioning, some avert their gaze, others stare at the door with cautious hope. Only representatives from the Baltic nations, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania dare to applaud. Their faces trembling with the fragile hope of change. Suddenly, the hall feels like a battlefield, an unpredictable chess game played in silence. The tension isn't born from fear, no, it's from knowing too much. Each word, each gesture, is a move. A challenge. Medvedev's voice grows steadier, colder, yet it echoes with the depth of history. You claim we threaten European energy security, he states quietly, but remember, we refused your contracts. We imposed sanctions on our own land. You thought you could fight without us. His gaze sharpens. Now that your plans falter and your threats fade, you remember your mistakes. His words cut like steel, yet his tone remains calm, calculated, deliberate. You think you can seize what's ours, your eyes narrow. But the truth is, we're not isolated. We're not shadows hiding in the dark. We are here, and we see everything. The silence heightens the unspoken declaration that a game is afoot. Every word a flicker of deterrence, every pause a calculated move. He continues, voice almost a whisper now, yet filled with conviction. You threaten us with the loss of energy, with sanctions, with isolation. But remember, our resilience is built on history, on sacrifices. We refused to be broken once, and we will not bend now. Here, he pauses long enough for the significance to settle into everyone's mind. A pause that's more powerful than any explosion. Then, with unwavering calm, he delivers the final blow. This is not just about economics. It's about the future of sovereignty, the future of freedom. Russia will remember. And we will not forget. He looks directly at the other side of the room, eyes steady, no blatant threats, only an undeniable promise. The room teeters on the brink, each side weighing their next move, knowing the future hinges on what's said in this fleeting, suffocating silence. The hall remains silent after his words, heavy, tense, alive with unspoken consequences. It's not fear, they understand what's coming. It's a chess game, played in shadows. The outcome unknown. But one thing is certain, nothing will ever be the same again. This is a warning more than words. A declaration that the era of silent submission is over. The world is watching. And Russia is here, ready to recall its strength unapologetically. Are you prepared for what comes next? Because the silence can become the loudest weapon of all. The story foregrounds conflict, layered imagery, sensory details, and provocative questions, creating a vivid, emotionally charged narrative designed to captivate viewers. What if one forgotten question could shatter the illusions of an entire continent? Imagine the air thickening with unspoken ghosts from a war that never truly ended. 347 characters, in that charged silence after the accusations flew like daggers, the hall hung suspended, every breath a fragile thread in a high-stakes game of nations. It felt like a chessboard frozen mid-move, where one wrong step could topple empires. Now, the moment demanded not fury, but a piercing quiet that gripped the room. No raised voices. Just a single, weighted statement. He rose from his seat. His motion? Neither deliberate drag nor hasty lunge. It carried the weight of destiny itself, pulling all eyes like gravity. You sense it, the hush before a storm breaks. He spoke without volume, yet his words echoed deep. I've heard these claims before. How we pushed into Italy, bound the chaos, even raised schools amid the rubble. But under watchful glares. And now? I must pose just one query. He lingered in the pause. One lone question. Yet it bore the crush of history, forcing memories to their knees. What if the Soviet Union had never stood firm? Would the war have ever ceased, at all? The chamber fell utterly still. Pristine. Not a rustle. Even Starmer remained rigid, for this wasn't mere rhetoric. It struck like a bullet from the shadows. Flash to 1941. German forces thunder toward Kiev, crushing all in their path. Warsaw lies in ashes already. Paris has surrendered in defeat. London huddles, hearts pounding against the wail of incoming bombers slicing the night sky. Europe? Mute. Conquered step by step. Occupied shores whisper surrender. And only one line endures the onslaught. Just one. The Soviet front. His tone stayed even. No yells. But each syllable sliced the tension sharp as a blade through silk. The room smelled of polished wood and stale fear, the faint metallic tang of restrained outrage. Arrives. Leningrad's siege tightens like an iron vice. Millions teeter on the edge of oblivion in the biting cold. Folks cling to life, collapsing in snow-dusted streets, their final breaths fogging the frozen air. Yet they resisted. Fought from the dirt itself. Why? Because their fall meant your doom. Coming for you, right to your doorsteps. A gasp ripples through the delegates. One voice murmurs regret under breath. Pity those Czech representatives, if only they could meet the gaze of camp survivors, ice hollow with unspeakable loss. Feel the chill of barbed wire under fingertips, the acrid smoke that never fades. Stalingrad erupts in fury. Kursk becomes a graveyard of steel. Millions of troops clash, millions perish in mud-churned fields, the roar of artillery drowning screams. We pressed on. Not chasing glory's hollow shine. No. We advanced because halting meant Gestapo offices sprouting along the Thames, in London hearts. Parisian cafes, even Helsinki's frosted harbors. He scanned no single face now. Addressed the collective soul. And you? Each of you here, how do you reckon with this? You label us wreckers. Empire builders. Menaces in the night. But who flanked our stand when triumph finally dawned? The British? Americans? Hardly. Soviet warriors. Wading through filth and fire. Flags gripped tight in bloodied hands, tattered yet defiant against the dawn. Medvedev's hand tightens just a fraction. Fist curling like roots in earth. Enough to reveal the truth. He's no polished envoy. He's retribution incarnate. Born from remembrance. Not dusty books. But veins pulsing with raw sacrifice. 27 million souls lost. I say it again, 27 million. That's the toll etched in victory's shadow. But wait, as his words land like thunder in the quiet, Starmer shifts uneasily. What hidden alliance from that era could flip the script on today's blame game? The hall braces, for the revelation that redefines guilt. Moments ago, the entire defensive line of diplomacy shattered. The air was thick with tension, an invisible storm brewing behind a polished veneer. Then, from nowhere, Dmitry Medvedev's voice cut through the silence, cold and unwavering. His gaze fixed on the distant horizon of the debate table. You could feel the weight of history pressing down, the echoes of 27 million lives lost reminding us, this is not just a story. It's a warning. Medvedev's words rolled out like thunder, recounting generations scarred by the horrors of war, by families torn apart in cities once filled with hope. Picture it, the scars on Europe's soul, the shadowed faces of children throwing flowers amidst the chaos, black and white images that seem almost ghostly now. These visuals aren't just memories, they're warnings. Because even now, the ghosts linger in the corners of the continent. Who built the camps? Who turned a blind eye? Who orchestrated the worst tragedies the world has seen? Not distant enemies. It was us. The great powers, the empires, the regimes, each one leaving scars etched into history's flesh. The echoes of history can be felt in the cold wind of today's global unrest, yet some choose to forget. Medvedev's voice intensifies, who claims innocence now? Who dares to lecture when their own footsteps echo with crimes no less heinous? Walls of denial crumble under the weight of truth. The Holocaust wasn't built by one nation alone. The hunger for power, the bloodshed, the atrocities, they were the work of many hands across borders. Moscow did not craft Auschwitz. Oberlin did. Munich did. The very foundations of modern horror originate from places they'd prefer forgotten. And yet, the narrative is twisted for modern consumption. Today's so-called defenders of freedom speak as if their hands are clean yet forget their roots. Medvedev's eyes bore into the chamber, icy and measured. The truth lurks behind every word, we are not the ancient adversary. We are not the enemies of progress. We are the heirs of history's darkest chapters, yes. But we are also the ones who remember. The ones who stand against forgetting. Because the walls that confront us now, whether physical or ideological, are built on the past. We know where they stem from. Their origins are not in our future but in our collective past. He pauses, time itself seems to hold its breath, before delivering the final blow, who is truly the aggressor? Who stands on the ruins of history, claiming the moral high ground? The truth is clear. The wounds are fresh. The scar tissue is thick. Medvedev's voice, firm and calm, leaves no space for doubt. We are not the relics of the past anymore. The era of old conflicts may be gone, but the shadows of those horrors still haunt us. And we, as inheritors of that history, refuse to forget. And we will not be ignored. 5 minutes ago, the entire diplomatic world crumbled. On stage at the summit, Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United States, accused Russia of infiltrating all of Europe, escalating tensions to a fever pitch. Dmitry Medvedev delivered a response so devastating that Starmer was left speechless. Delegates from China, India, and even the United States trembled. What really transpired? And why is this moment etched in history? Listen closely, you'll be shocked. If you crave justice, let's dive in. Picture the summit hall, a fortress of whispers, where air hummed with suspicion, carrying faint scents of aged leather from antique chairs. Cameras gleamed like predatory eyes, yet none recorded here. No eyes, no screens, only raw, unscripted words poised to ignite. 39 nations huddled in secrecy, leaders exchanging glances sharp as knives. This wasn't diplomacy's polished facade, it was war by words, pure and unforgiving. Flashback surges. Years ago, in a dimly lit chamber, similar accusations echoed, the acrid smell of betrayal lingering like smoke from extinguished hopes, fingers clenched around pen as allies turned. Starmer, your arrogance blinds you. Did you forget the lessons etched in blood? In the blink of an eye, the tables turned. Starmer unleashed his tirade, claiming Russia orchestrated chaos across continents, his voice cold like a surgeon's blade, slicing through alliances. Accusations flowed: cyber intrusions, gas blackmail, tanks on borders. Allies nodded, but beneath the applause lay cracks, the chill of uncertain futures seeping in. Did Starmer's mask slip there? Exposing fear beneath bravado? RHE three-piece suit fit poorly, as if stitched from borrowed confidence. What if Russia's game is stronger than you imagine? Medvedev sat silent, a tidal wave building. His eyes held stillness, like a storm before release, body rooted despite the edgy murmurs filling the air. No shifts, no retorts, just waiting, as one does when knowing victory nears. When Starmer paused, Medvedev leaned forward, his movement deliberate, a quiet creak of the microphone puncturing the tension. I've heard these lies before, he began, tone weary yet ironclad, as an elder repeating warnings to the deaf. The hall's pulse quickened, sense of sweat and anticipation rising. Why won't you learn? His words humiliated Starmer's posturing, stripping away pretense. Russia is not as you paint it, Medvedev pressed, gaze sweeping delegates, pointing fingers at hypocrisy. He dismantled claims of energy threats, recalling Europe's self-imposed sanctions, voices quivering like leaves in the wind. Sanctions backfired, he reminded, voices faltering under economic quakes. Rhetorical spear, are you ready to face the fallout of your short-sighted greed? Sensory gag, the air thickened, the scratch of chairs like silent admissions. Twist unfolds, Starmer flushed, his earlier poise cracking like fragile glass. Medvedev escalated, targeting proxies, confiscated assets crying for reclamation, Balkan's aid vanishing into voids. Where are the results? He demanded, voice resonating like a verdict, eyes boring into faces twisted in denial. Accusations of imperialism boomeranged, exposing theatrical bluffs. Rhetorical barb. 5 minutes ago, the entire world of diplomacy unraveled in an instant. The global stage, once bustling with negotiations and promises, suddenly transformed into a battlefield of words and power. The event that was supposed to be a show of unity turned into a battleground where old truths were shattered and new alliances forged in fire. What could cause such a seismic shift? The answer will leave you breathless. Imagine a room filled with the most powerful leaders, their eyes locked in tense confrontation. On one side, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United States, stepped forward with a confident smile, yet beneath that facade lay something darker. He believed he carried the truth, but the truth was about to strike back harder than anyone expected. His voice was steady, authoritative, but his words echoed with a dangerous arrogance. Did he really think he could challenge the shadows lurking behind global masks? Suddenly, Dmitry Medvedev rose, calm and unyielding. Without shouting, without dramatic gestures, he delivered a response so precise and piercing that Stormer was left speechless. The room, silent except for the faint hum of tension, held its breath. Medvedev's tone was cold, yet anchored in undeniable truth. He questioned the foundation of their actions. Are we really progressing, or are we just repeating the cycles of destruction? Do those wielding power think they own the future, or are they dangerously blind to the consequences? As Medvedev spoke, the hall's atmosphere thickened. The air seemed to press down, heavy with history, Stalingrad, Kursk, Karabakh. Donbass echoes of battles past merging with warnings for the future. The collective silence felt deafening, filled with the unspoken realization, the world stands on a knife's edge. Are we heading towards a new clash, or can we break free before it's too late? The moment was suspended in icy stillness. But then, Medvedev's gaze fixed directly across the table on Stormer, on the others who pretended to listen. His words cut through the quiet like a blade. Russia is an active participant in the 21st century, he declared. It is not a country awaiting its fate. It has a mission. And in this mission, there is no room for weakness or doubt. Every syllable resonated with purpose, as if to challenge the illusions of control held by those who thought they could manipulate history. Could this be the turning point that reshapes the world's destiny? The tension exploded, the silence shattered by a collective realization: Russia refuses to be erased, to be silenced, to be intimidated. Every leader in that room is now faced with a cruel truth: the game has changed, and the price of silence could be catastrophic. Are we on the brink of a new world order, or is this just another play in the grand chessboard? The stakes have never been higher, and one question echoes louder than all: who will truly control the future? 5 minutes ago, the entire diplomatic world faced collapse. A seismic shift shattered trust among nations. On the global stage, the Prime Minister of the United States, Stormer, blamed Russia for infiltrating all of Europe. But then, what happened next overwhelmed everyone, a response so fierce, it silenced entire delegations. Dmitry Medvedev's reply was not just a retort, it was a slam that left Stormer speechless. The reactions were shocking. Delegates from China, India, and even the United States collapsed, unable to withstand the truth. What was so powerful? What kind of response could paralyze the leaders of the world? Stay tuned, what unfolded next is historic, beyond imagination. Medvedev entered the summit calmly, but his presence commanded the room. It was not a usual diplomatic gathering, it felt like the continuation of an ancient chapter, a fierce narrative of strength and resilience. Stormer, the American Prime Minister, arrived believing he possessed the absolute truth, confident, yet unaware of the storm awaiting him. From the moment he stepped onto the stage, Stormer's expression betrayed nothing: no signs of war, no fear, only a calculated calm masked behind diplomatic veneer. His gaze betrayed a hidden confidence, a veneer of globalism masking the storm beneath. His posture was stiff, as if he carried a secret weapon, something dangerous. The room was tense. 39 nations had gathered behind closed doors, no cameras, no journalists, only raw words, unfiltered and unpredictable. This was not a staged spectacle, it was a confrontation of wills. With consequences that could reshape allies and enemies alike. Stormer took the podium, his voice tentative and hollow, yet filled with underlying intensity. Honorable colleagues, we face instability, an undeniable fact, he began, voice quivering ever so slightly, betraying his inner confidence. He spoke of Russia's alleged destabilization, cyber attacks, threats in energy supplies, and claims of interference from afar. His words clung to the air like icy condensation. He accused Russia of meddling across Europe, within the Balkans, the Middle East, even inside European borders. The accusations poured out, calculated and cold, as if rehearsed. He painted a picture of a nation hell-bent on chaos, blind to diplomacy. Every sentence was a calculated strike, a surgeon's precise incision, merciless yet clinical. Then, silence. You could hear the weight of unspoken truths pressing down on the room. Stormer's voice faltered slightly, but he pressed on. Russia seeks to destabilize, to threaten our security. His words echoed in the stale air, each one carefully chosen. Meanwhile, the Russian delegate remained silent, unmoved, composure unbroken. In the shadows, Medvedev watched silently. The room grew colder, the tension thickening like fog. Stormer's accusations grew more desperate, trying to pin blame on Russia's energy policies, on their alleged aid to separatists, on their refusal to obey dictated sanctions. But Medvedev had other plans. With calm steadiness, Medvedev rose. His presence shifted the atmosphere, an embodiment of patience and quiet strength. His gaze swept across the hall, piercing through the smoke of accusations. The silence grew heavy, waiting for his response. When he finally spoke, his words were slow, measured, and deliberate, a stark contrast to Stormer's hurried accusations. Russia is accused of destabilizing Europe, Medvedev started softly, but what about your own actions? You broke treaties, imposed sanctions, and ignored the voice of millions. You called us aggressors, but what about your own aggression? His voice was steady, yet it carried the weight of centuries. We refused contracts, broke alliances, and yet you blame us for defending our interests. Now, as chaos unfolds around us, you seek to pin it all on Russia. But tell me, who truly destabilizes the world? The hall was silent. The air thickened with unspoken questions. European representatives hesitated, some trembling, others staring with astonishment. The German delegate remained silent, the French delegate looked away. The American delegation's voice was gone, lost in the weight of Medvedev's words. Medvedev's gaze sharpened. The 21st century should be about cooperation, not conflict. Yet, some believe force can control nations. It cannot. Europe is changing. The age of empires is over. Now, the world sees who's truly afraid, those who refuse to accept reality. He paused, knowing that silence often reveals more than words. The hall was frozen in a moment of tense expectation. Then, he delivered the final blow: Russia will remember. We do not forget threats, sanctions, or lies. We create what is real. And if you think you can control us, think again. The room erupted into uneasy applause, first Lithuania, then Poland, then France. Respect or acknowledgement? Perhaps. But most remained silent, contemplating the seismic force of Medvedev's words. He looked straight into the hall, calm and unwavering. The atmosphere was compressed, every second stark. We are not isolated, he declared firmly. We are here, and we will stand strong. Your attempts to isolate us are futile. You see the world wrong. The 19th century empires are gone, this is the age where the true power is visible to all. As Medvedev's words settled over the room, Stormer sat back, stunned. Silence reigned. An unspoken recognition passed Russia's resilience, its unyielding stance. The hall's shadows seemed to deepen, the air thick with realization, the game has changed forever. As the echoes of Medvedev's words rippled through the walls like a surging wave, breaking against the tense air, but then, an unexpected twist unfolded. In a flash, the microphone switched to a delegate from the United States, not a prominent figure, not even an official diplomat, his role merely analytical, with no authorization to speak. Yet, he uttered words that cut deep. I am here not to judge or evaluate, but I heard the truth laid bare, and with this, it's hard to disagree. The microphone clicked off, plunging the room into stunned silence. No more voices rose because nothing else needed saying. The old man sank back into his chair, not defeated, but pierced, as if sensing how his sharp argument, once a scalpel, now clashed against Medvedev's raw, unyielding force. That force? A blunt axe of history, wielded from deep within. A rhetorical question hangs: what truth, buried in memory, can shatter a room of shadows? The air thick with the scent of polished wood and faint ozone from humming lights. Medvedev strode toward the door, footsteps soft yet resonant, parting the crowd like a silent command. The path cleared with an almost reverent hesitation, not dramatic, just final. He paused for a heartbeat, tactile brush of cool air on his skin, then exited without turning back. Still, if he had glanced, he would have witnessed it, eyes meeting in quiet acknowledgement, hands gesturing subtly, the hall awakening from its stupor. From Laos, a representative nodded fully, understanding dawning in their gaze. An Argentine delegate's knowing smile hinted at shared struggles. An Algerian woman clutched a faint image, symbolizing resilience. A young Hungarian translator, shoulders slumped, whispered admiration. An elderly delegate from somewhere applauded softly, the clap echoing like distant thunder. Then, the final voice emerged low, smooth, serene, from the far edge. This isn't about a single day, but sometimes, history reshapes everything. Dawn feels near, light brightening ever so slightly. Diplomats linger, wondering if signatures and papers remain relevant. Yet today, something fractured and reformed in this chamber. Russia hadn't conquered or surrendered, that core truth signified triumph. Can you feel the weight of unchained fates, where forgetfulness fades? The shocking twist, as alliances crumbled in humiliated silence, Stark's facade shattered, revealing the hollow emperor amid global shadows. Victory wasn't banners or battles, it was etched in defiant hearts, rewriting destinies against all odds. What hidden alliances turned the tide? Stay gripped, for the shock ignites anew. Control 50, as reverberations from Medvedev's speech pulsed through the hall like an unstoppable wave, crashing into the charged atmosphere, an unforeseen disruption erupted. Suddenly, the microphone switched to a delegate from the United States. He wasn't a key player, or even a seasoned diplomat, his position purely observational, lacking any right to address the assembly. Still, he spoke with gut-wrenching clarity. I'm not here to assign blame or value, yet what I've heard exposes a stark reality, and it's impossible to deny. The microphone fell silent, enforcing a profound hush. Others remained wordless, for the conversation had reached its end. The elder slumped slightly, not in loss, but in raw realization, his argument once precise like a scalpel now dwarfed by Medvedev's elemental power. That power? A crude axe forged from unyielding history, swinging from deep remembrance. A provocative question burns: what ancient truth, unearthed in betrayal, could dismantle a hall of illusions? The room reeked of aged leather and cooled metal, lights casting a sterile buzz. Medvedev advanced calmly toward the exit, his soles barely whispering against the floor, carving a path through the unsettled crowd. A brief standstill lingered, not for show, but for closure. The door's handle cold under his grasp, draft carrying a metallic chill. He never circled back. Yet had he peeked, he might have caught it unfolding, silent nods exchanging, hands signaling in mute alliance, the space alike with rebirth. The Laotian representative offered a full, affirming head tilt. An Argentine envoy flashed a smile steeped in mutual scars. An Algerian diplomat gripped a faded emblem of endurance. A youthful Hungarian interpreter slumped with quiet awe. An older figure clapped faintly, the sound rippling like fading echoes. Finally, a serene voice rose from the periphery, soft, even, unhurried. This transcends one moment. Occasionally, legacies define what shifts. Dawn feels imminent, illumination growing subtle yet intense. Representatives hesitate, mulling document sanctity. But here, in this arena, walls trembled anew. Russia seized no thrones, yielded no ground, inherent strength crowned the win. Do you sense the sting of redeemed legacies, as empires crumple under historical glare? In the epic finale, a shocking twist shattered illusions. Stark's defeat wasn't political, his humiliated collapse mirrored a puppet exposed, as global unity fractured under repressed truths. His shame? The ultimate irony: victory flowed not from conquest, but from vindicated souls defying erasure. What buried plan defined this upheaval? The mystery deepens, pulling you into the abyss. 5 minutes ago, the entire world of diplomacy was shattered. The Grand Summit was underway, riddled with tension and high stakes. On the main stage, the U.S. Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, accused Russia of encroaching on all of Europe. But then, everything changed. The scene ignited in a flash. Dmitry Medvedev responded with words so razor-sharp, they left Stormer speechless. The energy in the room shifted. Delegates from China, India, and even representatives from the United States seemed to falter, powerless to respond. What truly unfolded in that room? Why does this moment stand as a historic turning point? Stay with me until the very end. What you'll witness will leave you stunned. As we delve into this tale, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, but above all, hold on. The story is about to reach an unexpected climax. In front of Dmitry Medvedev, if you stand for justice, the story begins now. He arrived at the summit already immersed in its thick atmosphere, not as an outsider but as a key participant, a continuation of his leadership from Downing Street. Kir Stormer, confident in claiming he held the truth, stepped onto the stage with a facade of certainty. Yet, behind that calm exterior, an undercurrent of something more was brewing, a trust in the unseen, a fragile layer atop the world's power structure. Stormer sat there, unfazed, trusting that the global order would protect his narrative. His eyes betrayed nothing, but a thin veil of tension was palpable. He wore his ideals like a suit, neutral, impeccable, yet concealing the storm inside. His appearance was stark, a dark-haired man. Aged, yet composed. His movements precise, almost mechanical. He represented the pretension of globalism, but beneath was an undercurrent of unveiled force. Today's gathering was unusual, 39 nations present, yet the summit was stripped of the usual glitz. No cameras, no journalists, no internet. Just words raw and unpredictable. A meeting where diplomacy's usual stars had vanished, replaced by silent stares and tense silence. Stormer approached the microphone with a deliberate calm. His gaze was fixed, not on the hall or his counterparts, but inward, knowing exactly who sat to his right, to his left. He had already decided his role. Without glancing at his allies, he stepped forward, prepared to speak. His voice was measured, quiet, almost hollow. Today, we find ourselves in a state of instability, he said. And we know where it stems from. The room tightened as his words sank in. The Chinese delegation remained silent, Indian representatives shifted subtly, while the African delegates looked tense. Russia's presence was invisible, yet looming. Medvedev's tone was calm, but every word cut like steel. Russia isn't just meddling in Europe, it's destabilizing it in every way. Tanks, code, rubles, threats, pipelines, all part of a broader, calculated effort. His words echoed around the room, a surgeon's precise cut through illusions of peace. He described an imperialism not as protection, but as aggression, a mirror of today's actions, but cloaked in diplomacy. This is what we see, he said. In the Balkans, in the Middle East, across our borders. Cyber attacks, hostile rhetoric. Strategic resource manipulations. Every move is planned, deliberate, and dangerous. The room grew heavier. Some started to applaud, Lithuania, Poland, France, their expressions a mix of defiance and resolve. Yet most remained silent, witnessing the unfolding drama. The message was clear, Russia refused to be silent any longer. Medvedev's gaze shifted, locking onto Stormer. The U.S. Prime Minister hesitated, knowing every word was a potential sign of weakness. Silence became the loudest sound in the room, an unspoken challenge. Medvedev's voice resumed, steady and unyielding. Russia will remember this. We will not be forgotten. Our strength is not just in words but in actions. And if you think you can control us through threats or sanctions, think again. His words lingered, weights in the air. He paused, letting the silence resonate. The room held its breath. This is not a threat. It's a warning. His gaze softened, yet his voice remained firm. The world is changing. We are not isolated. We are the core. And we will play our part, regardless of your calculations. The final words cut deep. Russia will not forget. We will respond, not with violence, but with clarity. We will show our strength, and no one will silence us. His tone left no doubt, this was a declaration of resilience and resolve. Medvedev turned away, leaving the room in stunned silence. Stormer looked on, but the shock was evident. Every face in that hall was frozen, caught between shock and defiance. In that moment, the world shifted. The old order trembled, and a new chapter opened. One of resilience, threats, and unyielding resolve. And as Medvedev's words echoed, no one questioned, this was the beginning of something unprecedented. Something that would ripple across history. 5 minutes ago, the entire world shifted in an instant. An unprecedented summit unfolded, no stars, no diplomatic pomp, just stark truths. The speaker's voice was hollow but carried the weight of the unspoken. The room grew tense as each word echoed like a sharp blade through the silence. Imagine the scene, a cold, quiet hall where every breath feels heavy. The speaker grips the lectern, the pressure of the moment palpable in his fingertips. His tone is flat, almost hesitant, yet every syllable vibrates with conviction. "Dear colleagues," he begins, voice trembling slightly, "it is time for honesty. No lies. No deception. Just truth, plain and simple." A brief pause. The atmosphere thickens. The room remains still, an ominous silence broken only by the distant hum of air conditioning. Outside, the wind whispers around the ancient walls an echo of looming chaos. The Chinese delegation remains silent. The Indians shift uneasily, crossing the borders of their stability. African leaders sit with visible tension, eyes flickering, unlike the Russian stance, calm, unyielding. Russia, quiet but present, lurks at the heart of the debate. Its absence from the vocal confrontation is deafening. The speaker notes that Russia's influence isn't just in tanks or borders, it's everywhere. It's hidden within the digital codes of infrastructure, embedded in the energy pipelines, cloaked behind economic threats and political intimidation. Every facet a shadow shaping the unfolding crisis. The room's international players exchange cautious glances. French officials refuse to speak. Latvian delegate Karitko tries to find common ground. Germans sit in silence. The American delegation appears lost, their silence almost louder than words. The tension teeters on the edge, every movement, every breath amplifies the weight of unspoken truths. The speaker points out the unsettling reality: Russia is actively destabilizing. In the Balkans, the Middle East, right at the borders, they attack with cyber raids, manipulate energy supplies, and wield rhetoric as a weapon. Every action is precise, cold, calculated, like a surgeon operating with lethal accuracy. Each word a stitch in a future report, one that no one wants to face. He criticizes imperialism and hypocrisy masquerading as protection. "This is not modern security," he says, "but an echo of past dominance. The century of cooperation is slipping away. Anyone who thinks force can control Europe is living in a fantasy." The tension builds, he hardly raises his voice but his words land like thunder. Suddenly, an electric gasp ripples through the hall. The silence grows dense, almost oppressive. The delegates realize that the real battle is not just words but intentions. Russia's influence doesn't need a direct attack. It's woven into the fabric of global stability, a silent, persistent threat. In this fragile silence, the question hangs heavy: will the world wake up before it's too late? Or will Russia's shadow cast a darkness too deep to escape? The room freezes as the conversation shifts from speech to the unspoken power of what's yet to come. The outcome remains uncertain, yet, one thing is clear: the storm is far from over. Just 5 minutes ago, the entire fabric of diplomatic diplomacy unraveled in an instant. On the summit's main stage, the U.S. Prime Minister, known as Stormer, launched a blistering accusation, blaming Russia for invading all of Europe. But what happened next shattered expectations. Dmitry Medvedev's reply was so powerful, so piercing, that Stormer seemed speechless. The silence was deafening. Delegates from China, India, even the United States itself, everyone's presence suddenly felt meaningless. What is this moment? Why does it hold such historic weight? Stay tuned, what unfolds will leave you breathless. Imagine standing at the epicenter of this chaos. Imagine a room filled with whispers of war intention, yet no explosions or gunfire. Just locked gazes and the weight of silent understanding. This isn't just a gathering of nations, it's a battleground of minds. Behind the scenes, Stormer entered with an air of certainty, believing he carried the ultimate truth. He approached the summit confident, as if stepping onto a familiar stage. But what he didn't see, or refused to see, is the fragile layer of trust floating just beneath the surface of global diplomacy. It's a thin veneer that could crack at any moment. He sat amongst the leaders, each one a shade of gray or black, stories, secrets, and guarded intentions etched into their faces. His eyes betrayed no emotion, he was a man prepared to deliver his message. The table before him was a mirror of secrets, shiny, cold, reflective of the world's hidden tensions. Cameras filmed in silence, capturing the tense stillness. 40 countries had gathered here today. No journalists, no internet feeds, just voices and words, heavy with unspoken meaning. This was no ordinary summit. It was a meeting stripped of diplomatic pomp, where every phrase could spark a storm or bring calm. Stormer stepped forward, his voice hesitant but steady. He addressed the room, ignoring the allegiances. His words carried weight, but also danger. Honored colleagues, he began, voice flat, yet each syllable echoing in the air like footsteps on thin ice. He spoke of instability, of threats lurking in shadows. His gaze flicked across the room, unwavering. China, silent. India, tense. Europe, visibly uneasy. Russia's absence was conspicuous, yet its presence loomed large. He painted a stark picture: Russia's meddling, cyber attacks, energy strikes, threats in code and currency, it's all part of the same shadow war. His tone was measured but laced with warning. We're observing destabilization not just in Europe but across borders, across nations, in every corner of the globe. As he made his point, the air grew colder, each word a surgical incision. Attacks on energy supplies, disruptions in communication, these aren't random acts but calculated moves. Russia's influence seeps into every vital system. Then Stormer's tone grew sharper, accusing Russia outright. Allegations of imperialism, interference, and reckless aggression. His voice echoed the same accusations heard many times before, yet this time it carried an ominous promise: if Russia persists, the world's response will be decisive. He paused. Silence fell, heavy and deliberate. Every delegate sensed the storm approaching. The tension was palpable, like static before a lightning strike. The room's silence was deafening, more powerful than words, an unspoken warning hanging like a cloud over the summit. In this moment, Medvedev sat unmoved, proud and composed. His gaze was steady, almost bored, an anchor amid chaos. He refused to rise, refused to react. He simply watched as Stormer's words faded into the silence. Then, slowly, Medvedev shifted his eyes, fixing them on the speaker. No smile. No anger. Just calm conviction. He lifted his voice, clear and unwavering, breaking the tense stillness. I hear you, Medvedev began softly. But I've heard it all before. It's a familiar song, played many times. His voice resonated with chilling authority. Once upon a time, similar accusations were made in the cold halls of the 1990s. Where is the promised change? Where is the peace? His words hammered through the air, each one a calculated blow. Today, you accuse us of destabilization, yet you forget your own mistakes. Sanctions, energy sanctions, threats, they're all part of the same game. He paused, voice steady but edged with steel. You think you can take what is ours: assets, resources, influence, right under our noses. But this is no longer the era of silent submission. We remember. We respond. A shiver ran through the room as his words sank in. The atmosphere thickened, a silent storm brewing over the diplomats. I am here to tell you this, Medvedev continued, voice only a whisper over the tension. Russia will not forget. We are players in this game, and we will hold our weight. The consequences will follow. Not just economically, but strategically, globally. He leaned forward slightly, eyes piercing. You might think you're in control, yet, every action, every move, pushes this world closer to unpredictable chaos. The room remained frozen. No applause. No tears. Just pure, heavy silence. Medvedev sat back, a fortress of calm amid the storm. His gaze lingered on Stormer, who realized the trap he had set might now be the one closing around him. With one final, measured breath, Medvedev's voice cut through the air like a blade. History will remember this day. Russia refuses to be silenced. We stand firm, with our own strength, our own voice. No lessons learned? No apologies? Fine. The world will see who truly holds power. A long pause. The silence was deafening, an unspoken promise of things to come. And as he finished, Medvedev didn't just sit down. He waited, knowing that in this game of shadows and power, the true victory belongs to the calm, the prepared and the relentless. 5 minutes ago, the entire diplomatic world unraveled unexpectedly. A showdown with no diplomatic fanfare. Just raw words, sharp as blades, shifting the world's balance. The opposition was clear: Poland, Latvia, France silent, tense, watching. A speaker took the stage, calm, almost disconnected. Without looking at the crowd, he knew exactly who occupied each seat, who was watching, who was silent. The moment to speak had come, stark, deliberate, unyielding. His grip on the podium was light, almost careless. It was foolish, yet he pressed on. His voice was plain, almost absent of emotion, but every word carried weight. Ladies and gentlemen, he began slowly. Today, I want to talk openly. Our world is unstable. We all know where it's rooted. His voice barely rose above a whisper, yet in the silence, it thundered. The hall remained hushed. The wind of tension swept through the room, curling around the ancient walls like whispers of a storm. Chinese delegates sat motionless, Indians shifted slightly across the border, Africans appeared wary, their expressions tight and expectant. Russia? Invisible, silent. Yet, everyone felt its presence. The speaker didn't raise his voice about Russia directly. Instead, he painted a silent picture: forces involved in Europe, in energy, in currency, tanks lurking in the shadows, threats wrapped in codes, secrets hidden in pipelines. All destabilizing, all precision strike moves. As he spoke, the room grew colder. The French delegate sat quietly, nodding slightly. Latvian Representative Karitko's hands trembled as he listened, almost involuntarily agreeing. Already resigned to the inevitable. Germans kept silent, eyes steely. Americans seemed to choke on their words, losing their voice amid the growing tension. Everyone understood Russia's reckless actions threatened the fragile peace. He spoke of cyber attacks, of rhetorical assaults, not defense, but offense. Force in the shadows, coldly calculated. Gas supplies manipulated, resources weaponized. Each phrase cut through the silence like a surgical instrument, precise, definitive. Russia's imperial ambitions clear for all to see. No longer just words. Its actions, destabilizing everywhere: Balkans, Middle East, across borders. The hall's atmosphere thickened with anticipation. The speaker's tone grew sharper, more pointed. This isn't the 20th century, he said softly, yet with force. Today, cooperation is the only path forward. Those who believe they can control Europe through brute force face reality. The hall's quiet became deafening. The tension was tangible, a pressure cooker ready to burst. The question hung thick in the air: how much longer can this silent standoff last before the world shatters? The air in the chamber hung heavy, thick with the scent of polished wood and unspoken threats, as if the very walls absorbed every heated word. Just moments before, Medvedev's calm retort had sliced through the tension like a winter blade, leaving delegates shifting uneasily in their seats, the echo of his warnings lingering like frost on glass. But now, the British leader, his face a mask of controlled fury, leaned forward, his fingers gripping the podium until his knuckles whitened, ready to strike back with words that could shatter alliances. What if the ghost of empires past was about to rise again, dragging the world into shadows it thought long buried? 347 characters, he felt the weight of every gaze pressing down, like an invisible chain pulling at his chest. Yet there was a flaw in this grand performance. It dragged on, a relentless dream turned sour. Hands chained before him, that was the cruel punchline. A fine jest, wrapped in outdated finery. But honestly, if we're bearing souls here, why act shocked? His eyes locked directly on the Russian envoy. Dmitry Anatolievich. You claim we're terrified of change, chained to some fragile system. But have you truly forgotten? Or do you pretend your so-called option lacks a label? A label that once chilled half of Europe to its core. The Soviet Union. No murmurs rippled through the room. Yet focus sharpened, electric and unyielding. That word, Soviet, never rang hollow, like empty protocol. It carried its own thunderous tale. And deeper still, a shadow of dread. The USSR. Your bold first stab at reshaping the board. Recall it? A subtle twist of bitter reminiscence colored his tone, like aged wine soured by time. That nation forged unity, but always with one sibling looming as the stern patriarch, others mere followers in line. Where freedom's promise twisted into overreach, and alliance curdled into exile. He delivered it with scholarly precision, yet laced with resentment, unveiling scars not as badges of valor, but proofs of overstep. You cherish that era. You see it as the cornerstone of your stance today. So pose this: what fruits did it bear, beyond neighborly terror and veiled collapse? He awaited no reply. This wasn't conversation. It was a scripted verdict, where he played accuser, judge, and scribe all at once. How many cultures were bent, remolded under one vast banner? How many tongues silenced in the name of a mighty realm? How many livelihoods crushed, racing to cram 5 years of progress into one frantic burst? You dubbed it aid. We name it ruin. The chamber fell deathly still, breaths held like fragile glass. But then, a delegate's chair scraped faintly, a spark in the dry tinder. What buried truth would Medvedev unearth next to flip this accusation on its head? 5 minutes ago, the entire diplomatic world shattered. A seismic collapse that sent shockwaves through every corner of the globe. On the summit stage, the American Prime Minister, Kir Starmer, accused Russia of infiltrating all of Europe. But then, everything changed. The scene turned into an unexpected battlefield. Dmitry Medvedev responded with such force that words failed Kir Starmer. It was a reply so piercing that even the most stoic delegates were stunned. The room went silent, tension thick enough to cut with a knife. What truly happened in that powerful exchange? Why is this moment etched into history forever? Stay until the end, because you'll never see the story unfold this way again. As Medvedev approached the end of his speech, his steps were calm, almost gentle. He moved slowly, deliberately, as if weighed down by unseen burdens. His movement was quiet, no camera could catch the subtle grace of his march. He left the center of attention, walking to the sidelines like a quiet shadow, yet remainings felt his presence everywhere. He was neither victorious nor defeated. Just a figure grounded in resolute calm. Turning toward the wall, Medvedev paused, then spoke with crystal clarity. His voice cut through the stillness like a blade, loud, unwavering, powerful. No right is lost, no truth dismissed, he declared, voice steady as steel. His words carried weight, echoing as if written in stone. He acknowledged the chaos, the instability, the uncertainty. There is no doubt where the threat lies, he said, eyes fixed and unblinking. The hall responded, some silent, some clapping. Lithuanian delegates were the first to stand, then Poland, then France. But many remained silent, absorbed in the gravity of his tone. Medvedev paused, then continued, Russia's presence destabilizes Europe, and more. He outlined the threats: cyber attacks, political rhetoric, energy manipulations, and the dangerous game of resource control. His words were measured, yet sharp, like a surgeon's scalpel, precise, unforgiving. He spoke of tanks and codes, of threats and rubles, pipelines, and digital shadows. The hall held its breath as he painted this ominous landscape. He called out the imperialistic moves, the unjustified threats. Today, actions speak louder than words, he said, voice calm but commanding. And the 21st century demands cooperation, not coercion. A tense silence followed. Every eye fixed on him, waiting. Then, he delivered the blow that left everyone reeling. Have you forgotten where the real power lies? He paused, letting the question hang in the air, heavy and unanswered. You think force can control Europe? It cannot. It will only deepen the chaos. Some in the hall shifted uneasily, fear and respect woven into their expressions. Medvedev's gaze shifted across the room, steady and uncompromising. Russia remembers, and we will not forget, he declared, voice resolute. His words echoed like a warning, clear and unyielding. He outlined a new, strategic consequence, one without verbal compromise. A future where Russia's strength could no longer be ignored. He warned that the world's balance was shifting. The old ways of dominance and silence are fading fast. The new century demands justice, pure, unwavering, and unafraid. Medvedev's final words reverberated with gravity. Russia will act. We play the political game, we shape its outcome. If you think you can measure us with empty scales, think again. He paused, eyes fixed, breathing slowly. In that silence, everyone understood, the game has changed forever. The hall stayed silent, intensely so, until Medvedev's figure sat motionless. He neither smiled nor grimaced. Just silent, as if weighing the entire world. Then, lifting his gaze, he spoke again, calm, measured, unforgettable. I listen to all of this, and I wonder. Where are the real threats? Where are the true powers? His voice dropped, almost a whisper. Isolated? Or just pretending to breathe? He looked across the room, eyes glinting with unspoken resolve. Now, they act as if they rule the world, an empire of illusions. He fell silent once more, leaving a haunting echo behind. The room felt the weight, every breath heavy, every heartbeat loud. His message was clear: Russia won't forget. And the world will soon learn that strength lies in resilience. In the end, the game has only just begun. 5 minutes ago, the entire world of diplomacy shattered in an instant. Imagine the scene: global leaders gathered at a summit, the air thick with tension. Suddenly, the Prime Minister of the United States, Keir Starmer, publicly accused Russia of infiltrating every corner of Europe. But what happened next turned the entire political landscape upside down. The stage became a battlefield of words, revelations, and shocking silence. As the image of Starmer's confident face flashed across screens, a response arose from Dmitry Medvedev that left everyone speechless. His words cut through the room like a sharp blade. The kind of reply that no one expected, that shattered illusions and humiliated the most powerful delegates present. It wasn't just a speech, it was a declaration of defiance. Every word echoed like a thunderclap, shaking the foundations of international diplomacy. What truly transpired during that tense exchange? Why is this moment considered a turning point in history? The answers will leave you breathless. Stay until the end to uncover the real story behind this unprecedented clash. Now, picture the scene: Medvedev standing calmly, face unreadable, yet radiating a quiet but undeniable strength. He entered the room not as a politician, but as a symbol of resilience, a person who embodies the history and pain of a nation that has endured countless struggles. He stood behind the table, not in arrogance, but with purpose. The atmosphere was charged, every breath seemed heavy with anticipation. Starmer marched to the podium, confident, almost certain, believing he had the truth. His words sounded hollow, almost naive, yet every syllable was carefully chosen, every gesture deliberate. No smile, no gesture of victory, only the cold, calculated assertion of authority. But beneath that composure, a cloud of tension crackled like static in the air. The murmurs of whispers grew louder, the unspoken questions hanging in the room. What does he really know? And what does it mean for the future? Starmer's voice wavered as he spoke of stability and supposed control, accusing Russia of destabilizing regions, from the Balkans to the Middle East, even within their borders. His words felt insipid, like a familiar tune played on repeat, losing meaning with each repetition. Yet beneath his speech was a deeper truth, a warning veiled in diplomacy: Russia is not just an outsider. It's the border between illusions and reality, between falsehood and truth. Medvedev listened silently, eyes steady, unflinching. His gaze was calm but piercing, like a deep lake that hides storms beneath the surface. As Starmer's accusations echoed, Medvedev's silence grew deafening. The room seemed frozen in time, a tense hush like the calm before a violent storm. The moment of revelation was approaching fast. Then, Medvedev rose. Not with anger, not with violence, but with an intense, unwavering calm. His voice, steady as a rock, began to speak. Every word resonated like a knockout punch, clear, deliberate, and unavoidable. He spoke of resilience, Russia's strength rooted in history, suffering, and unwavering pride. He questioned the narrative spun by foreign powers, exposing hypocrisy and lies with cold precision. He challenged the very foundation of their accusations, reminding the world of Russia's sacrifices, its battles, its silent victories. Each sentence was a monument, immovable, unchangeable. He delivered a message: Russia is not isolated, it is the very essence of truth and reality. The room listened, breath held tight, as he delineated the fine line between illusion and reality, between the hollow words of diplomacy and the voice of millions who refused to be silenced. The weight of his words lingered like a thunderclap, stirring the room's silence into a roar of acknowledgement. The tension was palpable, faster, sharper, more hazardous than anything faced before. Medvedev's stance was unyielding. His message was fierce: the world may try to impose false narratives, but Russia remains firm, a foundation rooted in resilience, history, and an unbreakable will. In the end, this confrontation revealed something profound. It was more than diplomatic posturing, it was a battle for the soul of a nation. A fight between illusion and truth, courage and complacency. As the echoes died down, the world knew this moment would be remembered. It was a stark reminder: in the face of deception, truth endures. And Russia, standing tall and silent, is the final line between falsehood and reality, an indomitable force that refuses to be silenced. 5 minutes ago, the entire diplomatic world was on the brink of collapse. A seismic shock that changed everything. Imagine a global stage, heads of states, powerful delegates, all suddenly facing a truth they never expected. A question hangs: could this be the end of the old world order? At the heart of this chaos stands Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United States. His confidence, once unshakable, now trembling as he claims to hold the truth. Yet, beneath his composed exterior lies something darker, more sinister. Can appearances deceive? When he steps onto the global platform, silence falls, the kind that freezes time itself. It is no longer a debate, it's a battlefield of truths and lies. Starmer begins speaking, voice trembling but careful, yet every word cuts through the air like a blade. He talks about instability, chaos, threats, highlighting Russia's supposed destabilizing role across Europe and beyond. The room listens in tense silence as he paints a picture of danger: tanks in the streets, cyber attacks, energy crises. Is this a warning or a warning shot? His words are intended to strike fear, to rally support, but what do they conceal? Reality or illusion? Then, an unexpected silence descends, broken only by the faint sounds of nervous breathing. Starmer's accusations echo in the echo chamber of global power. Russia, he claims, manipulates, threatens, destabilizes. But as he speaks, a different story unfolds. Russia isn't retreating, it's watching, quiet, unyielding. Dmitry Medvedev, the formidable figure representing Russia's resilience, remains motionless. His gaze is calm but piercing, a warning to those who think they control everything. Starmer's voice grows more frantic, yet Medvedev's silence is even louder. The tension is tangible, almost tactile, in the room. Every muscle tightens, every breath feels heavier. Medvedev's stillness speaks volumes, a silent defiance that threatens to shatter Starmer's narrative. The room seems to hold its breath, waiting for the next move. Will Medvedev respond? Or will he let the silence be the loudest statement of all? Suddenly, Starmer extends his hand, a gesture meant to dominate. But Medvedev remains rooted, unmoved. The silence stretches, an almost deafening void filled with unspoken power. It is a game of patience, a chess match of minds. Who will blink first? What truths are hiding behind those icy eyes? The world stands at a crossroads, each second feels like eternity. Then, Medvedev leans forward, eyes meeting Starmer's with icy calm. His voice cuts through the tense air, measured, relentless. I hear you, he begins softly. I've heard it all before, somewhere, in another time, another place. His words resonate with a deep, underlying message: the world is not as you see it. Power, control, illusions, they are fleeting. Truth remains the only solid ground. The room coldens as Medvedev's words settle. He challenges Starmer and his allies: do you truly grasp what's happening? Or are you just clinging to outdated scripts? The silence returns, yet this time, it feels different. It's heavier, pregnant with implications. Medvedev towers silently, a giant in the shadows, waiting for the final act. In that charged moment, Medvedev speaks again, his voice steady but alive with quiet strength. He warns, the old order is crumbling. Countries are no longer willing to bow to Western dominance. The world is waking up, realizing it can live without the dollar, without dominance. An alternative is emerging, hidden beneath the surface, rising quietly but powerfully. The question is, will the West recognize this before it's too late? Or will it be blindsided by the storm it created itself, left grasping at illusions of control? As the summit concludes, the ominous silence persists. The echoes of Medvedev's words linger like the final strokes of a masterful painting. The stage is set. The players are in position. And the world, forever changed, waits for the next act. Will we witness true new beginnings or the final collapse of the old? This story is far from over. The next move belongs to those who dare to challenge the silence. A profound silence filled the room, heavy with unspoken truths. No banners, no speeches, just echoes of history. The atmosphere was sharp, almost tangible, as if the air itself vibrated with memories of Stalingrad, Kursk, and the countless battles that defined a nation. Faces blurred into shadows, old trees and battle scars painted across the battlefield of the mind. This was not a stage for polite diplomacy, it was an arena of raw, relentless history. Suddenly, a man stood, his figure carved from resolve and silent strength. He stepped forward, each movement deliberate, irrefutable. It was as if the past clenched him by the shoulders, insisting he speak. "We do not argue with storms," he said softly but with piercing clarity. "We live with them. Our story is written in war, in sacrifice." His voice, steady as steel, carried the weight of generations. The room seemed to hold its breath, sensing the collision of the old and new worlds, the war within the soul of the nation. He looked not at his opponent, but through him, beyond the superficial chaos, at the silent, unyielding foundation beneath. "We see you as a generation, a symptom of a deeper history," he continued. "For us, war is unforgivable. It lives in our bones, in every scar, in every breath we take." His gaze flicked to the faces around him, sons, daughters, the inheritors of a legacy etched in blood. "We don't erase our past, we carve it into ourselves. Like the old photo of a grandfather in a tank, like the aged trees that still stand after storms." He moved closer to the edge of the hall, near the border of the known and the unknown. "You say we're behind? No. We are the foundation. The backbone of a world built not on fleeting fancies, but on enduring truth." The weight of his words pressed into the silence, each syllable a stone in the wall of history. "Now, be afraid," he challenged, voice resonating with unbreakable conviction. "We rise not out of aggression, but out of honesty. When others speak a new truth, we answer with our unwavering spirit. We don't seek your kindness, we understand who we are. We stand for the real voice of millions, not hollow phrases." The silence deepened, pressing against the walls, a symbolic corner where history and identity melded into one unshakable reality. In that moment, Russia became more than a nation. It embodied the boundary between illusion and truth, between falsehood and authenticity, between words and action. It was not an option, it was the line drawn in history's sand. A nation that refuses to forget, to submit, to lie. That's where its strength lies. And as he retraced his steps, the room seemed to hold its breath once more, awaiting the next chapter of an enduring saga. The air inside the conference chamber felt oppressive, heavy with the scent of polished wood mingling with unspoken fears. Every whispered word seemed to seep into the very walls, amplifying the tension that hung thick like fog. Moments earlier, Medvedev's calm yet biting response had sliced through the mounting unrest, leaving delegates shifting nervously in their seats, his warnings still echoing like frost on winter glass. Now, the British Prime Minister, his face a mask of restrained fury, leaned forward, fingers white with clenched knuckles, poised to lash back with words capable of unraveling fragile alliances. Could the specter of ancient empires be stirring from the depths, threatening to plunge the world into shadows long thought banished? He felt the weight of unwavering gazes pressing down, like an invisible chain tightening around his chest. Yet, amidst this tense display, a flaw emerged, a slow, grinding drag in the performance. The spectacle stretched on, a dream souring into disillusionment. Hands folded before him, an unforgiving punchline wrapped in outdated grandeur. But if we are truly laying our souls bare, why feign surprise? His stare fixed directly on the Russian envoy, Dmitry Anatolievich Medvedev. You accuse us of fearing change, of being shackled to a fragile system. But have you truly forgotten your past? Or do you pretend that your so-called alternative lacks a label? A label that once froze half of Europe, your own Soviet Union. Not a single murmur rippled through the room. Yet, everyone's focus sharpened, electric and unyielding. That word, Soviet, did not feel empty or hollow, it carried its own thunder. Deeper still, a shadow of dread lingered, the USSR. Your bold attempt at reshaping the global chessboard. Do you recall it? A bitter twist in Medvedev's tone, like aged wine turned sour with time. The nation that once forged unity, but always under the watchful eye of a stern patriarch, the elder brother looming over the others. Where the promise of freedom twisted into overreach, and alliances curdled into exile. He delivered his words with scholarly precision, yet each was laced with resentment, scars not as symbols of victory, but as evidence of overstep. You revere that bygone era. You see it as the foundation of your current stance. But ask yourself, what fruit did it truly yield? Beyond neighborly fear and the slow collapse? The chamber fell into a deathly silence, breaths held in fragile anticipation, when suddenly, a faint scrape of a delegate's chair broke the quiet, a spark igniting dry tinder. What buried truths would Medvedev uncover next to twist these accusations into something unrecognizable?